the QAnon stuff. Jim's QAnon. Well, let's look into that, because that could be really evil. Somewhere in Congress, they said QAnon is racist. Okay. Well, we don't like that, right? But so is the Ku Klux Klan. And that's another letter. It's a K. We don't like the letter Q. We don't like the letter K, but they don't go after the letter K.
Meet Jim Caviezel, the QAnon supporting actor who starred as Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's 2000 movie The Passion of the Christ. And boy, has Jimbo let his freak flag fly in the years since, starting off with a claim that the government never fought the KKK.
They don't go after the letter K.
Now, I hate to tell you, but the guy who played Jesus is wrong. Not only does the U.S. list white supremacist violence as one of its top national security concerns, the KKK has long been classified as a domestic extremist group, and the feds have a long history of fighting it. But there's a reason you're seeing a lot of Jim Caviezel recently. As it turns out, Jim has a far-right movie he's promoting, but he didn't want to talk about that. Instead, he talked and talked and talked about how believing in QAnon is slightly better than being a Nazi.
And there is a lot of data that can prove that the Ku Klux Klan is an evil organization, and so are the Nazis. One could say that they're also racist, but they don't go after those. Only the QAnon. Now, by way of analogy,
about 1 minute remaining.
If I were the Apostle Saul, and I'm a Pharisee, I'm going to go after the Christians. I'm going to take them down. Now, remove Christians and let's make it QAnon. I'm going to destroy them because the Romans told me they're evil.
Jim, buddy, you starred in a movie about the world fighting the Nazis in World War II. What's going on, man? But that's nothing compared to Jim's big reveal, that Joe Biden and the Democrats want to, I guess, crucify QAnon? I'm not quite sure.
And then you find out it's not QAnon, it's Q and Anons. And Q puts out a question, and you're not allowed to ask questions anymore. Not allowed to. And the Anons, they look it all up. And they start looking and investigating this stuff. I never knew about them while I was doing this movie, Sound of Freedom. It has nothing to do with our film.
Well, one thing is definitely clear. Jim Caviezel is spending way too much time on 4chan, and I really need him to go out and touch some grass. Now, Jimbo did eventually get around to talking about his movie. And would you believe it, it's one of the biggest conservative box office openings ever, at over $40 million. That's 5 Monkey Bones, or if you're really feeling generous, nearly 2 Battlefield Earths. But do a little digging and you'll realize that $40 million box office isn't quite what it seems, because the production company behind Caviezel's film has been buying its own tickets and distributing them for free to Christian groups nationwide. Caviezel is literally preaching to the choir with a movie about how QAnon is right, and he's paying to get them seats, too. Conservative groups hope all the fake buzz around the movie will create a national conversation around child sex trafficking or QAnon or, I don't know. Jim isn't really sure.
Jim, can you just give us a little bit of a window from your experience and your understanding? How widespread is child sex trafficking in Hollywood?
That one I'll talk about in the future. That one, it's a good question. It's there. I'll talk about it more in the future. My stuff came more from the agents and the guys that I've worked with.
Listen, it's really rare when you get a guest on live television who just straight up tells you he has no idea what he's talking about. And master broadcaster Charlie Kirk doesn't have the sense to just reset the interview. So Jim got a lot of time to think.
And screaming of children is, well, there's something in me that says that ain't going to happen on my watch, because I have a father that's inside my heart, and I'll go after these. And it's okay to be that. And that's why the line's in there. Better a millstone being hung around their necks, that they be cast into the sea, that they should ever hurt one of these little ones. And that's what's coming for them. It's going to be a wrath on them.
Now, if you follow me here, which you should, you'd notice that that quote is the exact same thinly veiled biblical death threat that a Texas mother threw out at a recent school board meeting. You can check out more on that story by clicking the link on your screen. But not yet. We're almost done here. Caviezel's ignorance about the subject he just made a movie about didn't stop him from threatening a, quote, wrath on his enemies. And it won't surprise you to know that those enemies are mostly Democrats. Critically, not a single Republican has condemned this madness. And, surprise, None of them will. The MAGAfied GOP is still a cesspool of QAnon conspiracy theories, and the language behind them is becoming increasingly violent. If only Jim Caviezel could take on a role of a man famous for peace and compassion. No idea who that might be.
It's a good question.
Did you know Republicans are still trying to figure out what their Hunter Biden conspiracy theory is? Check out this video to learn a little bit more.
Is working harder than an ugly stripper to cover up.
And as always, leave a comment below so you can let me know what I should cover next.